Welcome to a special edition of Crawford County Outdoors. Now, this is a little different. We actually talked maybe about, should we call this Crawford County Indoors? But no, it's outdoors. But I think everyone's well aware of what's going on this year, and we've got a little bit of an unusual situation this year. I'm very proud to introduce a guest today, Mike Parker from the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. Mike, the communications director for the Fish and Boat Commission. Thanks for joining us.
Sure. Thank you, Duane. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so I've been hearing some bits and pieces of some news about trout season this year. Trout season normally is going to be starting here in a couple of weeks, and kind of give us a big picture here. What's going on?
Well, for Crawford County, Duane, I don't want to say it's par for the course because basically nothing is right now. Things are a little bit different. But as far as opening days go for trout season, up there in the Northwest, we're still dealing with the same mentored youth trout day is going to be Saturday, April 11th. And then what everybody looks forward to, the big opening day of trout season is scheduled for Saturday, April 18th. Now, the difference is if you have anybody, that's traveling down to the southeast corner for what we traditionally had as that regional earlier opening dates, those regional earlier opening dates from, let's say, the Chambersburg area in Franklin County, east over to Philadelphia, up into the Lehigh Valley, and sort of, in that southeast and south central corner, because of the challenges that we have with this, public health issue occurring right now, we've modified the schedule to remove those earlier dates. So all 67 Pennsylvania counties at this point will be operating under that statewide schedule.
Mike, let's take a second and talk about, okay, so it's like you can't turn on your TV, radio, anything without hearing about all the how many cases and all the the new number of infections and there's this many deaths and so on. To me, let's get outside. It's kind of like the flu. The more time you're inside in a close environment, right up next to somebody, you're probably more at risk than actually being outside with our outside activities. What do you think about that?
I 100% agree with you. We just have to make sure from our standpoint that when we are encouraging people to fish, and fishing is a 365-day activity in Pennsylvania, if you want it to be, it's much more than just trout season, which a lot of people look forward to. We just want to make sure that people are aware of the regulations, and we know as a commission, as the agency that's responsible for managing fishing and boating and providing many of the opportunities that Pennsylvanians enjoy, that opening day activities tend to be a little bit bigger than just about everything else when it comes to the footprint that we have across Pennsylvania, where we're talking about, in some cases, hundreds of people gathered around a lake, as everyone likes to say, elbow to elbow, on opening day around a stream. So, that idea that we're going to be able to, get out there and have trout season opening day as normal this year, nothing's really normal right now. I think we're still going to be able to pull it off. We just have to make sure that when people get outside, enjoy that fresh air, and head streamside or lakeside, that they're doing the same things that we're doing in other facets of our life right now. When we take a hike around the lake, now we're going to have a fishing pole with us. It's not going to make a difference. We're still going to allow that buffer of personal space between each other. Some people say that's going to be a challenge. I tend to think that once the moment arrives, that anglers are going to adapt and choose, caution over just not going at all.
I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, we made a topic of the show, trout season opening day, and a local friend here who I followed and filmed while he was out fishing, calls it Saint Trout Day. So it's kind of like, let's see, there's Christmas and there's Easter and there's Saint Trout Day. I mean, that to him is like right at the top of the list of any day of the year. But I hear what you're saying and I understand that. So maybe go over some things to think about. Now, the restrictions are you're supposed to stay 6 feet away from the person next to you. I'm guessing most people's fishing rods probably about that long. So if I'm going to use my rod from side to side, that's going to probably mean I need to be that far away from the next guy, right?
Yeah, that's a good general rule of thumb. Unless you're ice fishing, Duane, the rods are, a little bit shorter in that season. we didn't have much ice fishing this year in Pennsylvania. So let's just talk about, the standard trout rod is, 5-6 feet long. A steelhead rod's going to be a little bit bigger than that for those guys that, up there in the Northwest. But we're looking around that 6-foot recommendation. So yeah, if you can hold your fishing rod and stretch it out to the side, and you're not touching the person next to you, that's a good rule of thumb. That's a good measure of that social distance, that we're hearing. Certainly, there are family units. Me and my 2 kids and my wife, we're going to head out to go fishing on opening day. We all live under the same roof. We're all sort of sharing the same germs, if you will. So, we're going to be hanging out together just as we would. And the kids need assistance from adults in many cases, to be fishing. But it's when you're intermixing, if there's going to be other groups of people around, you just want to respect that personal space. I think, there's no way I can, tell you, our waterways conservation officers aren't going to be out there with a measuring tape. There's nothing in the code that allows us to enforce a measure of social distance. At this point, this is just being smart. This is unfortunately the new societal norm that we're dealing with, whether you're at the grocery store, the gas station, or alongside your favorite trout stream.
My granddad bought and built a cottage at Conneaut Lake way back in the 1920s, I think it was. And I've my entire life, I've been going over to the cottage and spending much time there, doing lots of water activities. Whenever we go to put the boat in the water each year, it seems like all the people that either didn't bring a boat or didn't have one handy, they all seem to want to fish right from the boat launch. So when I go to put the boat in the water, that's when we're going to probably want to be extra careful, I guess, about that, the social distancing that you mentioned. And we're still probably a couple weeks away from that. But you mentioned too before about the ice fishing. Conneaut usually gets some ice on it. This year it iced up a little bit, but it never was really thick enough for the winter ice fishermen. And that was another fun show we had done a number of years back. Was the ice fishing over at Conneaut Lake. But looking forward to putting the boat in. So I'm hearing what you're saying. So just be cautious, right?
Yeah, be cautious. Use common sense, and we're just, I guess, going back to a couple of those recommendations that we can give to you is, okay, so the 6 feet thing, that's the buffer area that everybody's sort of using. If you have kids with you, make sure, because kids tend to wander off, make sure that the kids are within your reach, that they're respecting that personal space. My kids are age 9 and 11, and they pretty much get what's going on. But 2-3 years ago, you might have a little bit of difficulty. You try to tell your kids to stay away from strangers, and they understand that. But things right now are just out of caution. Just try to keep people healthy and limit those interactions with other folks that we don't need to right now. So respecting everybody from a distance. Certainly, see, the one great thing about fishing is it sort of lends itself to this social distancing. I mean, I think anglers sort of, I don't want to say we coined the term social distancing, but there's a lot of people who just don't want to be around other people to begin with, that want to get out for some peace and quiet on their favorite stream. So, looking away from opening day where we may have crowds, there are plenty of other opportunities to get out fishing right now, whether it is for trout in some of our special regulation areas that are open to year-round fishing, our Keystone Select trout waters that have the artificial lure only catch and release regulations, where we've basically overstocked these nice 14 to 24 inch trophy trout in large numbers. Those are great to get out to right now. And then there's great places where you can fish for bass, walleye, panfish, muskies. This would be a great year to say to yourself, I want to get out and try to catch a muskie, because not only are we stocking lots of muskies and bigger muskies, it's one of those activities that's just going to lend itself to say, this just might be me out there doing this. So, if you don't like crowds, maybe the first, the opening day of trout season, isn't for you. Maybe wait a couple of days. I hear from plenty of guys who say, I never go out for the first 2 weeks of trout. I like to let everybody else go out, have their good time, and then I go and pick off the rest of the trout. There's always plenty of them out there.
So a technical question for you here. So even not just the fishing, but going to get my license. Now, I live in Crawford County, and I think it might take me 5 minutes to get to the courthouse, and that's where I generally go to get licenses for hunting and fishing. Can I do that online?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just I can't exactly walk you through it here, just based on the fact that I've already purchased my license online. I've been doing that for probably a decade now. But this year, we're making it easier so that people who are uncomfortable right now getting out unnecessary trips, they know they're going to go to if they don't have a local tackle shop, or the government offices aren't open right now, they don't want to go stand in line for this. So yes, you can go. You just go to fishandboat.com. It's going to lead you to what's called there's a tab there that says buy your fishing license. That's going to lead you to what we call the Pennsylvania Outdoor Shop, which is the same place. It's a shared resource between the Fish and Boat Commission and the Pennsylvania Game Commission. So you can buy your fishing license there. You can buy your launch permit. You can do your boat registration renewal. And then, if as we get here into the summer, you go back there and buy your hunting license too. Help the Game Commission out, make things easier for yourself. But here is what we've done is we've actually loosened the requirement in two ways this year. So a couple of months ago, you may remember we took away that requirement that you actually display your fishing license on an outer garment. So even though I like to put my fishing license, on my hat or on my vest, it's sort of a fashion statement for me, Duane. You don't have to do that anymore. You can have your license and just keep it in your pocket. That way, if an officer does come up to you and say, "Hey, can I check your license?" You just pull it out of your wallet, pull it out of your pocket. We've had complaints over the years that people, will lose their license, like when they're fishing or walking through the woods, or maybe they're on a boat and the wind gusts and their hat blows off. Now they've got to pay a few extra dollars to buy that license that they went to the store to buy, and it's an inconvenience. But what we've done to actually make things even more convenient this year is if you go to our app, which is Fish Boat PA. All right, so I've got it here on my smartphone. I'm going to see if I can bring this up for you. So let's see here. I've got there's all these other apps that I have, and right here is Fish Boat PA, and that's what the icon will look like up there in the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and click that one more time. And so there you'll see it's Fish Boat PA. And right there, first thing says get a license today. You click on that and buy a fishing license online. Takes you to the outdoor shop, and it's the same interface that you would use. It's gonna ask you if it's your first time. It's gonna ask you for either your CID number, which is the number that's on your current fishing license, or your social security number. That way, you're in the system already, and then from there you just go ahead and purchase your license. This is the difference. So this year, if you don't have a printer at home, you're going to actually be provided with an image of your fishing license. So here's mine. Okay, so it's maybe a little tough to see here because it's sort of bright, but that's what a fishing license is. You're gonna have that on your phone. Maybe that's a little bit better. I'm trying to get the right angle here for you. But all you need to do is save that image onto your phone, or let's say you're buying it on your computer. Just take your phone and when that image comes up on your computer, snap a picture of it with your camera, save that, just like you were taking a picture of your children or your grandchildren or whatever, and save that in the gallery there on your phone. And that way, if you're approached by an officer, you just show them the image of the phone digitally on your device, and you're good to go. And because we're having the challenges right now with, offices being closed and people away from work, we're allowing that same courtesy there to show that digital image of your launch permit, or if you're renewing a boat registration, you can also go ahead and show that digital proof of purchase, and you're good for now.
Now, I've mailed in my boat registration a while ago, and the sticker came. I just haven't got the boat out of storage yet, so we'll be putting that sticker on there. Let me change topics with you for a second here. You mentioned before about the steelhead fishing. This past fall, we had a small group of guys who drove here from Texas to do some hunting. They did some archery hunting. They went pheasant hunting and did steelhead fishing. And I followed them with the camera and filmed them steelhead fishing. What a blast! That was really something. I guess the kind of fairly dry last summer and fall, it kind of put the season off a little bit to a late start. But we went to Conneaut Creek, and of course it poured down rain the whole time we were there, so I was really struggling to keep the camera dry. But wow, was that fun! They hooked a couple of them, and they were jumping and pulling and splashing, and that was really something. These guys told me they're coming back from Texas to do that again.
Yeah, well, that's great news. I mean, that is a special opportunity that you hold up there. That I can tell you right now, a lot of Pennsylvanians have never been to Erie. It's one of those places that you go there and you sort of fall in love with it. But a lot of people don't have a reason to go. Just like it just depends where you want to do. But if you're a fisherman and you're looking to catch some of, I might be blowing the secret for you. I don't know how you feel about this, Duane, but I don't think the steelhead resource in the Northwest up there in Erie and Crawford County is a secret anymore. Especially, I know we have folks from Texas, all over the country, that come to visit there. As a commission, we've created something up there that's world class. If you ever have a chance to head over to our Fairview hatchery, it's a really cool facility. You can see the hundreds of thousands of steelhead smolts that are being raised there. We stock about 1 million of them every year. There's been evidence of small amounts of natural reproduction within some of the tributaries. Not every year, but every sometimes there is a little bit of natural reproduction that goes on, but not enough, and not on the scale that if we weren't out there, supplementing that fishery with so many steelhead every year, it essentially would go away. So everyone who's up there and supporting that program through the purchase of their, special Lake Erie permit and any other support that they're lending, just by fishing up there and spreading the word and supporting that economy. I think it's somewhere around $40 million a year just in Erie County alone, based on tourism dollars that come in from steelhead fishing. So we're very proud of that.
I just heard on the news here not long ago about a conservancy project that's it's right along Route 90. I think it's on Walnut Creek, but there's now a much larger section that's open to the public to fish up there. And again, that's going to be very popular, I'm sure, for the steelhead season. One more thing that came up, the group from Texas was kind of like my second group I was going to interview. There was a group coming from Europe, and they were going to come in October, but it really never started to rain till the very, very end of October. So their schedule didn't allow them to come in November. So we got the Texas guys, which was equally neat to get people coming from, multi-thousand miles away and back driving just to come for fun stuff up here in Northwest Pennsylvania.
Yeah, no, people. I have friends from down here in the Harrisburg area that it's become an annual trip for them. Every time I'm there, I run into guys from Pittsburgh. That's the easier trip. Pittsburgh to Erie is an easier trip than it is from Harrisburg to Pittsburgh. And I hear the same things that you do, because when we travel, which I do get to Erie several times a year, on various Fish and Boat Commission business, and I stay in the hotel around Steelhead season, it's like you never know who you're going to run into. Folks from Europe, folks from neighboring states, and they're all in on it. They know that we've got something special here in Pennsylvania. And again, if only we could make. I don't know if we. You're lucky to have it where you have it, because it could still be elbow to elbow in places. But man, if we had steelhead everywhere, I think that would be bigger than anything, in the rest of the state, if it was as conducive to it. But we just happen to have the perfect situation up there with Lake Erie, the big fish bowl that they can, these smolts can head out to and grow into big fish within that body of water. And because we stock them, so far up in these tributaries, they imprint young, they go out there, they swim back to the lake, they grow up, and then as they're coming back in just massive numbers, it just makes an amazing opportunity for anglers.
Let me change species with you here for a second. I put on the cover page of our Crawford County Outdoors Facebook a big muskie that was caught at Conneaut Lake this fall. And I know other places like the Conneaut Creek, that's the outflow from Chautauqua Lake up in New York State, flows down to the Allegheny River. Apparently, I've been told that's another real popular spot for muskie. What about muskie fishing and maybe some other species? Give us some tips and some news on those.
Well, as far as tips go, muskie fishing is one of those. It's an art. They don't call it the fish of 10,000 casts for no reason. Here's the thing. Even though it is extremely, it's sort of a niche, species for people who are out there fishing. I mean, certainly I've been out on the Susquehanna River. I grew up on the Susquehanna River, fishing with my buddies. And we used to say, man, you'd hook into something and you'd be, we were just fishing for smallmouth bass, but every once in a while you'd hook into something that was just much bigger than a bass, and the line would snap, and we'd say, oh, that must have been a muskie, because we assumed with these big teeth and everything that they were just snapping our line. We weren't set up for muskie. It very well just could have been a large channel catfish too, but it's almost a thing of legend for most people. Now, there are guys who are very specialized at it and know what they're doing. They use these various streamers. I've heard of you can catch muskie on bait, but they like something that's moving fast through the water. You're either going to be pitching the rod and reeling very quickly, or you're going to be trolling behind a boat. But the best part is as elusive as the fish is, this is probably the best time in Pennsylvania history that if you're going to start muskie fishing and going after something that's potentially 40 to 50 inches, and weighs 40 or 50 pounds, it's a pretty impressive fish. This is probably the best time ever that you've ever had, and the reason for that is because there's recently been a shift in our approach to how we stock muskies. Again, you look down in the Three Rivers area of Pittsburgh, the Allegheny, the Monongahela. We have determined that there is very little. There's some natural reproduction of muskies, but for the most part, it's a fishery that is almost entirely supported by our stocking efforts, and there is and that would be 100% in any of the lakes that we put muskies in across Pennsylvania. So we made a determination a few years ago to, instead of stocking, we said we're going to stock fewer muskies but bigger muskies. So whereas before we were putting in larger numbers of 6 to 7 inch muskies, now we're keeping them for a little while longer. We're growing them out, we're feeding them more, and we're putting in fewer, but we're putting in muskies that are now between 10 inches and 12 inches. And what we're finding is that those fish of larger size are surviving a lot better. We're setting them up for success. So they're not being preyed upon in as much numbers as, by the walleye, even the bass, even a large bass could go after one of those smaller juvenile muskies. So instead of stocking them as fingerlings, we're stocking them as yearlings, and we're heading into the second and third season of doing that, and it's proving to be pretty successful.
Now, from my house in kind of central Crawford County, it's about 5 minutes to Woodcock Creek Lake. It's about 10 minutes to Tamarack Lake. It's about 15 minutes to Conneaut Lake, and it's about 20 minutes to Conneaut Lake. Let me jump to Tamarack for a second. There was a repair, I guess, of the dams on both ends of the lake here over the past number of years. And I had a friend who bought some property out there, and it was kind of like a big field rather than a lake for the last number of years. But the people around Crawford County are very, very excited about Tamarack Lake coming back and about the fishing. Now, we did a show about a year ago. The Fish Commission was part of it. The local conservation folks were part of it, and talked about all the things you were just mentioning about the stocking. Stocking some small fish first that could be food for the bigger fish, and it was quite an interesting topic. The show went on for about an hour while they were going through all the details of that. But the bottom line is, people around here just can't wait to get back out to Tamarack Lake to get fishing. It's real close to town here, and very, very popular spot.
I was fortunate enough to be there. After this lengthy project, in many people's opinions, it took way too long, and it always feels that way when it's in your own backyard. And at Tamarack, I was there when we had held the ceremonial turn the valve event, and we had a great time out there. The Friends of Tamarack Lake are one of those. It's a model organization for what we're looking for when we have these rehabilitation projects. We are directed under regulation of the Department of Environmental Protection to make sure that our high hazard dams are effectively working and that they're structurally sound, because we have a large amount of water impounded behind that. If something were to go wrong, anyone living downstream of those areas it could be in danger. And it could cause some major problems, not only to property, but also to threaten lives. So that was one of the many years ago. It was identified as one of the areas that needed to be rehabilitated. It's sort of an interesting property because you've got the two dams there, the one on one side and one on the other of two creeks. And then they sort of meet in the middle to form the lake. So it took several $1 million. It took a lot of community organization. But what we're ending up with now is the lake is refilled. The fishing, that's the one thing, Duane, is, fishing is it takes time to reestablish the fishery in the way that we want to have it. So, Tamarack Lake is going to be home to largemouth bass population. It's going to have lots and lots of panfish there. I have to look down the list of the species, but I know during that public meeting that we had, I think it was in Westmead Township, going on a year ago or so. We did talk about how we were going to put some muskie in there, and folks said, no, don't put the muskie in. They're going to eat everything, and that's simply that's not true. We understand the concern because it's pretty much the apex predator. Nothing is going to eat it. However, the way that a muskie eats, the way that it preys on other species, they're pretty content to have a fish or two a day, well within the rate that we're stocking fish that they over the next several years, and then they'll reproduce. And so they'll go in there because it provides another angling opportunity. There's no danger. Our biologists have just more letters behind some of their names from their knowledge of fisheries science than I can count in some cases, and just their knowledge, I have to put my trust in them to say that they're doing what's best. And we're here to provide fishing and boating opportunities. And if someone wants to head out there to Tamarack and load a bucket with panfish, if they want to catch some trophy size largemouth bass, or if they want to try to get that elusive muskie, all those opportunities exist right there in your own backyard. I don't want to drag on about Tamarack, but in any case where we reestablish a fishery after a rehabilitation project like that, it takes about 5 years until you can actually begin to harvest fish out there. So like you said, you started off with plantings or stockings of small feeder fish, the various minnows. Then we put in, fingerling, largemouth bass. We'll supplement that with the panfish. All of those smaller fish then begin to grow and sort of live amongst each other. The minnows will reproduce several times over the summer and start to make a self-sustaining population. Same with the panfish. As the bass grow, then the balance there becomes what it needs to be. And as after about, you might start seeing bass that are 10 to 12 inches within the first 2 years or 3 years. But we need those larger fish in the system because they become the breeders and they become the ones that will spawn and create the self-sustaining population. So there's a process there. The fishing tends to be a little bit slow. It'll definitely be more of a boating destination for folks for the next couple of years. But once we get around, year number 4 or 5, we're really going to have good numbers with our surveys out there to let people know when the time has come that you can start, keeping fish if that's what you choose to do.
That's great to hear that. I've been getting Facebook posts from a bunch of friends showing pictures and can't wait to get out there and having a lot of fun with that. I was, I think, maybe like 3 or 4 years old when Tamarack Lake was first built in the early 1960s, and a relative took me out fishing, and here I'm like, 6-year-old or whatever, I'm reeling in, and it's a muskie, and it's like, a big long muskie, and it got almost to the point where we could grab a hold of it, and it bit through the fishing line and got away. And so that's something that you would think something I'll never forget. Anyways, let me ask you a different question on Conneaut Lake. In mid-July, there's a big bass classic, the bass fishing tournament. That's a fundraiser for the United Way, and people come from all over the place for that one too. Conneaut Lake apparently is known for the bass, both largemouth and smallmouth bass.
Yeah, it is. It's it's another destination fishery. I'm going to leave it to the guys I'm just going to be honest with you. If I wish, one of the favorite parts of my job is to get out and see the state. So there are places that I'm extremely familiar with, but I'm going to leave it to the local experts there to talk about Conneaut. I know some guys, but unfortunately, it's one of the bodies of water that's eluded me to this point. I look forward to getting out there and enjoying that, and I have heard some great reports. One thing I can tell you is, our regional outreach and education staff is fantastic about putting out fishing reports. We call our region reports. And our biologists are great about putting out their survey reports. So one way that we can judge, if you want to see what people might be catching or hear about, anecdotal stories about what anglers say, based on what the local bait shops and others are telling our staff when we make calls around to talk to people. Keep tabs with our Facebook page. It's the Fish and Boat Commission, Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. Just look it up. Follow us on Facebook. I think they drop on Wednesdays or Thursdays, once every couple of weeks. So you can read more about those waterways that are close to you. As far as our biologist reports, that's really how we judge what's going on in a lake. We hear, angler input, and when someone tells us, hey, I'm not catching a lot of bass, or we're catching a lot of bass, we take that information into account. We also, though, have, the ability to go out there and catch large numbers of fish ourselves with our electro fishing equipment, our net surveys that we use. So our biologists are going out and surveying these lakes for the species. So we know what's really there. We can assess if there are habitat needs that we need to improve, if the balance is a little, wacky in between species that may be causing things, not to go on so well. But you can find those biologist reports just on fishandboat.com. Just search our biologist reports, and most places we're surveying annually. Other places we're hitting them every couple of years. So depending on the information may be extremely up to date, or the information may be very recent. But you can head to fishandboat.com and check out our biologist reports, and that'll be one way that you can determine if a place like Conneaut is as legendary as many people are finding it to be.
Well, Mike, we sure appreciate you being with us on Crawford County Outdoors today. Let's kind of summarize here. So now there is no restriction on the lakes. I can go out and go fishing this year. We're going to, of course, encourage people, that social distancing that we've been hearing about a lot. But there's no restrictions. Like, it's not, fishing licenses aren't cut off and all that kind of stuff.
No, absolutely not. I said it before, and I'll just reinforce the fact that, fishing in Pennsylvania goes well beyond the opening day of trout season. Certainly aware that for many people, the value of a fishing license depends on that opening day experience. But for many others, and I'd like to say the majority of Pennsylvanians, fishing is a year-round activity. We were, some people, maybe who are looking forward to ice fishing this winter would argue, but we were blessed in many ways that we were able to fish pretty comfortably all winter long in most corners of the state. I encourage people, although that we have restrictions, and there may be facilities, on a local level, a municipal park, or potentially, another facility that isn't allowing people in right now because of what's going on with this virus. No one's saying not to go fishing. Fishing is actually great for your physical well-being. It's a great escape. It's good for your mental well-being, and you can head out there and fish right now. If you want trout, lots of great special rig opportunities out there. There's plenty of warm water species that are just the month of March tends to be a little bit slow for panfish and for bass for many people. However, it's really going to start picking up here as we get into the spring and we get these warmer days. And I just want to tell people, it's a great break. Get outside, take the kids, respect that personal space of others as we're being directed to in every other aspect of our lives right now. But we want people to go fishing. Pick up your license and have a great time.
Well, Mike Parker from the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, we certainly appreciate you being with us on Crawford County Outdoors today. Great topic. I'm glad we could talk about all these things and get those things out there. Just to reinforce, get out there, get outside, and being in a tight, closed space, to me, not necessarily a great thing. Being outside, that is a great thing. So we appreciate everything you had to say. Well, thank you for joining us today on Crawford County Outdoors, and we will talk to you next time. And get outside.